So it's one of the most asked questions I get, and it's also one of the most misunderstood when it comes to the next gen cup cars. So, what is it? Well, it's the ride heights. What is the optimal ride height? Is there an optimal ride height? Should you be using stiff springs or soft springs? And how do you know when to figure it out and how to do it? Well, in this video, we're going to cover all that because there is unfortunately a lot of stuff out there that is either misguided or just flat out wrong. And so today I want to set the record straight on some of this stuff so you can actually get your car tuned to feeling much better, because when you do figure this out, it makes the handling of the car way better. So stick around. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brennan here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, we're going to be taking a look at the ride heights on the next gen cup car. Now, a couple of things. First of all, this goes essentially for all of the tracks, with exceptions to, like flat tracks. Martinsville ride heights don't really matter. Okay. New Hampshire, tracks like that, the flatter, slower tracks, this isn't that big of a deal. Mechanical grip is far more important. But when you get to faster tracks or even shorter tracks that have banking where you're carrying speed, this is critical. And getting your car set correctly in terms of the ride heights is super important, because if you don't, you're going to be losing a lot of grip with the rear, or I should say the underbody and rear diffuser not being tuned correctly. Now, for those of you, if you have not seen it, I did a video a while back, a few weeks, couple months ago now, where I talked about the importance of tuning the rear diffuser. If you haven't seen that video, I'd recommend checking that video out. I'll post a link somewhere, one of the things that pop up cards or whatever. I'll have a link down in the description below as well. But I would recommend checking that out because it is really important. But when it comes to tuning the underbody and the rear diffuser, a lot of people don't understand exactly how to do that or what that even means. Now, in order for us to kind of, go over that, you got to understand how a diffuser works. Now, in that video that I just talked about, I kind of give an example and I show you using a spoon and a stream of water. And it's a really good example, and it works really well. And that's the way that you want to think about this car when you're talking about tuning the underbody and the rear diffuser. Most people think of it in terms of kind of a linear thought process, in the sense that they just think, okay, lower, better, because lower, more downforce, right? Because when we talk about downforce, we're talking about creating high and low pressure and all these different things like this. If you want to get into all that stuff, you can find all that info on the internet. I don't need to bore you with all the technical speak. All you need to know is when you have a diffuser, you're essentially talking about changing air pressures, where now you're creating this suck down effect, right? Downforce, okay? Well, the thing is it's not as simple as just get it as low as possible and that's going to increase the downforce. Yes, getting it lower can increase the downforce, but there is an aspect to this that you want to think about. And one of the things that you want to think about is the actual sucking down of the car. And this is really important. You see, what a lot of people will ask me when they're asking about, what should I do with my ride heights and how low should I make the car, stuff like that. One of the things that they'll say is, well, do I just want to run the stiffest springs possible and then drop the car all the way down? There is a thought process behind that says, yes, you do. And there are people out there who actually do that. In my opinion, I would say no, I don't want to do that. Now, there are times where I'm running super stiff springs and I've got the car slammed, but that's not an everyday thing. In fact, a lot of times what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a little bit softer spring, and then I'm going to allow the car, when it's at speed, I want that downforce. I want that, that high and low pressure. I want the car to be sucked down to my desired height. That's what I'm looking for. You see, when we look at downforce with like the Gen 6 car or the Xfinity or the truck, everything's over body, right? We want to think about sealing off the front, getting the sides of the front dam sealed off, getting that thing as low as possible, and then everything's over body. With this, you want overbody downforce, yes, but you also want to have that underbody working correctly. And you got to get the ride heights correct to do that. So, what are the correct ride heights? Well, I did a bunch of testing and did straight comparisons with a couple of different examples. So, let's head over and let's take a look at those results. All right, so first things first, what I did was I created basically a base setup, okay? And I started with that setup really high. So you can see here, and also ran really stiff springs. So we got 46, a 4350, a 4000, and a 3000 for our springs. And then you can see here, I've got the car really high. Now I do have the tilt in the rake where I want it. And keep in mind, when we talk about the best ride heights or the optimal ride heights, for me, I want my car to be flat at the apex of the corner. All right. Now, when we have an actual flat track, like we talked about earlier with like a Martinsville or a New Hampshire or something like that, I'm not as worried about getting the car flat. I am worried about the rake because that definitely matters. But when we have these bank tracks, especially these faster ones, I want the car to be flat at the apex or as close to flat as possible. Keep in mind, I will have some tilt and some inverse rake because as this car burns fuel, that rear can raise up quite a bit, especially the right rear. You can see, man, like a half an inch. I mean, you can see 3, 4, 5/10 of an inch that the right rear will raise up as the run goes on. So you always want to keep that in mind. Fuel is very, very important with these cars and the changes in that fuel. Usually it's on the quarters. So every 5, 10, 15 gallons that you burn off, right when you hit those marks, you're going to feel, I mean, it's almost like you cross an imaginary line in the car. All of a sudden it's like, man, this thing changed in the last lap or two. Those are the markers you want to pay attention to, okay? But that being said, I've already got the tilt in the rake exactly where I want it. So I did this, okay? Labeled it. I went out and I ran, not in exact, it came out to be 17 laps, but I ran the exact amount of fuel that, like what I was just talking about, the fuel is really important. The first 2 gallons, I ran around the top. Then I ran it down to 14 gallons, running through the middle and then the bottom. And then I would compare the lap times. Along with comparing the lap times, I would also look at the data here in Motec. Now, if we look at the first setup, okay, which is these white lines here, and we compare it to the next setup, and all I would do is really, really simple, and I even labeled it this way. All I would do is I would go down 20 clicks each test. So the next setup is exactly the same, right? Ride height test B stands for base, and then we've got ride height test B minus 20. And I would just drop it down 20 clicks on all 4 corners. I would reset the cross weight, the camber, all right, make sure all of that was the same on all 4 corners, make sure everything was exactly the same. It was, the preload was sometimes on exactly the same, but as close to as I could get. And then I would go out and I'd run the exact same test again. I did this like 8 different times. So I ran the stiff springs and then I ran softer springs and I compared the data against each other. And it was really, really interesting. So what did I find? Well, first of all, getting the car lower to the ground does increase your speed. It does increase your downforce, but it's not linear, okay? And what I mean by that is this. You can go too low, okay? Especially if you're at a track like this, Chicagoland, where it's bumpy. If you start bouncing into the ground, you're going to lose downforce because that's basically, once you hit the ground, you're essentially, there's no more downforce because you're cutting the air off to that rear diffuser, okay? So there is a zone that you want to be in. If you're slamming it off the ground, you're going to be losing downforce, all right? So it's got to be able to pull down, right? There's got to be a gap there in order to generate the downforce. So it can be too low. I found this with the softer springs at minus 60. When I went down 60 clicks, it was too low. As soon as I hit a bump, the car immediately lost downforce and spun out on me. I mean, I only did like 2 laps, okay? Now, that was why I picked Chicagoland, because obviously, well, not only that, but we're racing there this next week or the week after. We're racing there soon in the Cup Series, but it's a fast and bumpy track. And it's not just like a lot of little bumps. There are some little bumps, but there's some bigger bumps too. And that's really important, okay? So as you decrease that ride height, the dynamic ride height, and that's important, all right, you are going to increase speed and you're going to increase grip. But here's the thing. When you do that, you do need to compensate. One thing that I figured out when I went from being really high to being really low with the stiffer springs, because I didn't change anything else, one thing that I needed to do after I had seen that it was faster and stuff like that was now my tire wear is not the same as it was before, and my tilt and rake is not the same. Now it was only slightly different, but we're only doing like 20 lap runs. Okay. So if you are making drastic changes like that, keep in mind it's all package related. And this is really important. All right. There's so many people who ask me all the time, like, what's the secret sauce to these cars? There is no secret sauce. Okay, it's not these springs at this height with this bar and this gear and boom, you're going to be fast. There's so many different combinations that you can do. Okay, this car is really, it's all package related. If you are somebody that wants to run soft ARBs with the car high up in the air and have it rolling over, you can do that and be competitive if it fits the way that you want to drive the car. You absolutely can. Okay, if you want the thing like I do where I have it sucked to the ground but it's driving off the corner on the right rear, you can do that and be fast, right? But you got to have everything else that matches it. Okay, so that was one of the things that I really discovered, was even dropping it down. As you can see, we only dropped it. So here's our base in white. When we went down to so the colored lines is 60 clicks down from the base on all 4 corners. The white line is the base. You can see that overall, dynamically, we dropped the car an inch, okay? A full inch dynamically. We were riding at 2.1 inches, 2.0 on the left rear, right? Dropped it down to 1 inch on the front and, 0.9 on the left rear, right? So dropped it a full inch dynamically. And that drastically improved our speed. If we look at our speeds here, our average speed per lap was a mile per hour faster. Our top speed was 2 miles per hour faster, and our lowest speed was 1 mile per hour faster. So not only are we reaching a higher speed, but we're maintaining a higher speed over the course of the entire run. Plus, and I don't have this because the stint analyzer literally got rid of my stints, which drives me nuts because I spent 2 hours doing that today. But luckily I remember it. It was a full 1/10 of a second faster on average per lap. Okay, so all across the board, 3 lap, 5 lap, 7, 10, 15, 20, all across the board, a full 1/10 of a second faster. Okay, my running 10 lap average after 20 laps with the raised up car was like 31.7 seconds. With the lowered car, it was 31.5. So I had taken 2/10 off my running 10 lap average, and then across the board, we were a 1/10 of a second faster. Okay, that's huge. Not to mention, my quickest lap time was a full 1/10 and a half faster. And that was around the top. Okay, so it's not like I was like down on the bottom and I missed the line. No, that was when we were running around the top, a full 1/10 and a half of a second faster. Okay, so getting these correct, super important. So that's the stiff. What about the soft? Because one thing that I've said numerous times before is I actually like the springs to be a little bit softer, because I want the car to be sucked down to that level, not just be super stiff and sitting there. I want the car to suck down to it. Now, why do I want that? Well, imagine that you have a vacuum and you're trying to suck something down to the ground. Okay, When you have, let's just say 4,000-pound springs at all four corners, right? What are those stiff springs wanting to do? Well, they're wanting to expand. If it's much harder, right, to keep that spring compressed, okay, well, how hard is it going to be to keep that car sucked to the ground? Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, we can have it just riding low, but if we're at a bumpy track and it bumps, then what, right? It's super rigid. The car's not going to absorb the bump much. It's just going to boom, like it's a jolt, okay? So for me, I want the car still stiff. It's not like I'm running with 1,000-pound springs, still stiff, but I want the car to have a little bit of a suck to it where it sucks down and it basically pulls it down and settles there. Now, when we go over a bump, I can set my shocks to deal with that bump and it'll ride over it smoothly. I can hit it, but yet I still have that optimal downforce, that rake and that tilt that I'm looking for, especially at the apex of the corner. So when we ran the soft, we saw the exact same results in terms of improvement, okay? When we went to the lower one, I could only go down 40 clicks. The reason why, when we went down 60 clicks with the softer springs, it dropped too much. We were bouncing off the track. And if we look at what that was, I had only gone down 1,000 pounds, okay? So all I did was take this base setup, the one with the B, all I did was go down 1,000 pounds on each corner. 36, 3350, 2,000, 3,000. That's it. Everything else stayed the same. And then I just dropped it 20 clicks each time. 20 clicks, it was improved. 40 clicks, excellent. 60, we were too low, bouncing off the ground. When we look at the data once again, it's the same exact story. When we look at our ride heights, though, this is what's really important, because our ride heights, we were actually lower to the ground, okay, than we were negative 40 clicks with the stiffer springs. Well, why is that? Well, that's because, remember, softer springs, it's compressing more, right? It's dropping down. You want to think of the springs on this next-gen car. Don't think of them as like mechanical adjustment for grip. Yes, they can do that, right? If I put a stiffer right rear spring, it's going to loosen up the car. Absolutely. But you want to think of it first and foremost as a dynamic ride height controller. If we look at the car when we're at the apex of the corner, if I highlight the turn here, right, at the apex of the corner, we can see that we are essentially flat, right? We're 1264, 1231 on the front, so the left side's a couple hundredths higher. Left rear, 1134, right rear, 1093. Keep in mind, I want that. Like I said before, as this thing burns off fuel, that right rear will get higher, okay? If we look here at lap 16, right, apex of the corner, now you can see 1358, 1374 on the front, basically flat. And then on the rear, we have 1267 left rear, 1347 right rear. That right rear has already come up some, okay? And we've only done 15 laps, all right? So that's what I'm looking for with the car. And as you can see, when I talk about it being flat, we're talking front to rear. Front, 13.5, rear, 13.5 or 13.47, right? So that's what you want to look for when you are setting these ride heights. So go out, pick a track. What I recommend doing, put on stiff springs, okay? Somewhere at least 3,500s on the front, you know, and then higher. And then on the rear, do at least 25s on the rear, on either both rears, or if you want to do like a 2,000 and a 3,000, okay? I usually try to have an average of 2,500 across the rear when I'm figuring out my ride heights, okay? This is just for testing purposes. So you could do like I did where you go 3,000, 2,000 on the rear. That would be an average of 2,500. And then on the fronts where you've got, you know, 4,000 and 3,700 or whatever. But then go out, turn some laps, right? Get the ride heights if you're using telemetry, and then just bring it down a few clicks, okay? And drive it and see what feels good to you. Remember, the lower, the faster it will be, the more downforce you will have, but it's not just being low, it's also being flat and at the right rake. If you've got the wrong rake in it or your car's rolling over too much to the right going into the corner, you're just losing downforce. That thing, it's just low, okay? It's not doing you much good. So you want to make sure that you got that correct, because if that's not correct, you're going to be in for a rough ride, especially when the tires get worn. All right, everybody. So that's going to do it. I hope that video helped you and kind of explain some stuff to you. Because like I said, I know there's a lot of stuff out there about, you know, this car and, you know, the ride heights and what you should be doing with it and stuff like that. And I mean, I've heard everything from, you know, hey, you want the, I mean, I've actually heard people say in official races, hey, you want the diffuser to be dragging on the ground. I mean, that might work for some people. To me, I wouldn't be able to get around the track. Okay, so I just want to show you guys what has been working best for me, and this is what I do for all of the insiders. When I build insider setups, this is how I do it, right? This is how I get that ride height, that diffuser and underbody to work the way that I want it to. Okay, this is the way that I do that. So it's worked for me and it's working for everybody in the insider program. So, you know, hopefully it can help you. Now, before I go, a couple things. First of all, if you like it, please hit the like button. Also, make sure share, subscribe, all that other good stuff. Leave a comment down below. And then also, right now, at the time of recording this, iRacing is running their Winter iRacing series with the 87 Cup cars. I am actually building the setups for that open series. We ran Bristol last night. I had a shot to win the race. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. Kind of a crazy ending. I'm going to actually be posting that here on the channel. But the setup worked really well. I just had somebody message me say that they won with it. I'm going to be posting those for free on the free membership site. So if you want to get those to run that open series, you know, until it's over in February or whatever, just head over to schoolofsimracing.com, click on the button join community, and that'll get you access. You can get those free 87 Cup Series setups. Okay. Also, if you are interested in learning how to build custom setups for the next gen Cup car, I'm going to be doing a setup masterclass. We talked about it a while ago. I said it was going to be coming. Had a bunch of stuff that had happened, obviously, but it's finally coming. The page will be going up here, I think tomorrow is when the page is going up. But tomorrow or this weekend, I got to look at when I have it scheduled to go up. But the page will be going up for the registration, and I'm going to be doing a masterclass on these cars. I'm going to be breaking down all the different components, what I look for, how to do it. I'm going to be showing you guys how to build the setups using telemetry, and it'll be one of the free telemetry books, so you don't have to buy anything, or, you know, for the telemetry or anything. It's not like you got to have one of my custom workbooks or anything like that. You can use just the free Motec telemetry, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I build the setups for these cars and what I look for and how I tune them and everything, right? How do I determine what I want the rake angle to be? How do I determine the shock package, the spring package? How do I know, you know, when I want to run softer springs or all that stuff, the cross weight, the nose weight, anything that you can think of. I'm going to be covering that in that masterclass. It is going to be something you have to pay for, but it's only going to be like around like $20 or something like that. Okay. And you know, once it's there, and you can access it whenever you want. Now, for those of you who have also asked about an Xfinity and a truck one, I will be doing one of those as well, but it will be after the next gen. So we're doing the next gen first just because this is the newer car. People have more questions about this than the other ones. So we're going to be doing this one first. When this one is done, then we will do the truck and the Xfinity. I'll probably do them together. I mean, it won't be the same training, but I'll be doing them at the same time. It'll be two separate trainings. So if you are interested in being involved in that, or you want to learn more about that, head over to the website. Make sure you get signed up, because the email will be going out to the community. Head over to the website, get signed up, and that'll give you access to the free membership site, the free setups, all the stuff that we have, and also our SSR Discord group, which is awesome, and our Facebook group, which is awesome. And of course, I'm going to be biased because it's my group. So anyways, if you want to check in that stuff out, links down in the description below. But that's going to do it. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope this helps you, and I hope this sheds some light on this stuff with this car, because like I said, there's a lot of confusing stuff out there. So I hope this helps. And until next time, as always, I want to wish you good luck, good racing. Take care.